Hey, and welcome to the Neurodivergent Musician Podcast, where I explore the world of neurodiversity and musicianship. I'm your host, John Hart, and today I'll be joined by Tristan Hunt, who is a certified transformational coach with specialist ADHD training and over 20 years of music business experience. He coaches music artists and music industry professionals who have ADHD, and Tristan also has ADHD, dyslexia, and dyscalculia. He has been my coach for a while now, and it has been game-changing. In this episode, we dive into the realm of ADHD coaching. So let's dive into that conversation.
Good morning, John. Hello, how are you?
Hey, Tristan. How are you? I'm all right.
Doing well, thank you.
Thanks so much for coming on the podcast.
You're very Thanks for inviting me.
Brilliant. So this episode is going to be about coaching in general, but I imagine we kind of bounce off and things as well. I am very aware that that we can go off of traits, especially me. I'll go off of tangent things as well, but I'll try and rein it in as best as we can. But I suppose before we start, can you introduce yourself?
Of course. So my name's Tristan Hunt. I'm a music industry ADHD coach, specializing in helping people that work within the music industry that have ADHD, both artists and music industry professionals. I've been working in the music industry for over 20 years. I got diagnosed with ADHD aged 40. I'm now 44. That was a revelation. I've been through over 10 years of psychoanalysis, spent over 1,100 hours on the couch trying to work out my head, been through drink and drug addiction, all of these different sorts of things. And having done all of this work, going to the gym, having a good routine diet, and there's still something that's not quite sticking. It's rather still something that was sticking. This happened in lockdown. Couldn't work out what it was, thought it might be ADHD, went for a diagnosis, bingo. Okay, so that happened. All the while, John, I'd been working a lot within the music industry community, helping out with mental health. So I'd done a lot of talking work and sort of panel work around the world at different conferences, talking on the subjects of mental health, specifically in the music industry. Had this really good network of people that worked in mental health in the music industry. And yet there weren't any ADHD coaches specifically for this business. So I thought, well, I love this subject. I'm fascinated by it, and I really want to help people. So I retrained, spent a couple of years retraining, and then launched my private practice in September 2022. And it's been all go since then.
So from the awareness of finding out you had ADHD to, I feel this, I'm going for a similar transition, but from awareness to then become almost transitional into a career. And how many years was that? How long did that take?
I think the awareness happened in 2018. So I was studying therapy at the time. I said to my therapist, I think I might have ADHD. Being a psychoanalyst, she's a psychoanalyst. She said, yes, I think you probably had undiagnosed ADHD your entire life. I was like, okay, fine, thank you. So that was 2018. I got diagnosed in 2020. So there's a sort of 2-year gap in between there.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and then was it 2022? Is that when you officially opened your practice? Was that?
That's when I officially opened my practice. Yeah. So basically, when I got diagnosed in 2020, I had already been doing a huge amount of research. So I've got myself a couple of degrees. Got my undergrad degree in Southampton University, master's at University of London, Birkbeck, and love studying. Had done a ton of research, and I just thought, do you know what? I love this subject. It's fascinating. And the more, because as you and I both know, of course, the more you learn about ADHD, the better able you are to manage your ADHD. So from a practical point of view, I was like, this is really helpful for me. I think this could be helpful for other people. And then sort of combining the music industry expertise. So people like yourself that work in the music industry, of course, can come to sessions without needing to explain what it's like to be a performing artist or work in production or, the recorded side, sync, publishing, whatever it might be. already get all of that stuff. Okay, so you don't need to explain, the challenges of your particular career, because I understand that. But let's look at how your ADHD shows up specifically for you within that career. And so that was sort of the orientation behind doing what I do now.
And interestingly, very ADHD moment. I just heard that you studied at Southampton Uni. I studied at Southampton Uni, and we've never said that. Sorry, there was there's kind of like a squirrel kind of moment of like, right, I need to listen to everything else Tristan is saying, but you've just said Southampton University, and that's just stuck in my head, and I'm like going back to memories. And I'm like, bring it back, John, bring it back. And my wife did as well.
More. We can definitely chat more.
Right, which is fine, but that is such a one of those moments that before I'd have no awareness that my brain would start to veer off into this other tangent or things as well. And the work that we've been doing on top of obviously therapy and things. And I think those conversations where they are separate, which was a really important, not fork in the road, but like you need to have these separate, you need to be working on them. So the things that we do, and I imagine others, I kind of believe it's been very foundational stuff for a while in regards to, right, okay, operations, what I do with my life and things as well. Because like you said, the experience of a musician, I could go to another coach, but they have no understanding of what I do in the trenches every day and what I'm working on. And I'm trying to sort of think where with your coaching, I mean, the lived experience as well is so vital, I found, because obviously you can have a coach. It's like a teacher who they can train to become a teacher and then they go straight into a school, but they've got no kind of life experience. So they're reading out the book. Whereas where you're coming from, you've got a lived experience and you're topping it up with training yourself, educating yourself. Did you ever feel there was two hats that are combining? So I know professionals can go into therapy and coaching, but they don't necessarily have the lived experience of what they are, So if I'm trying to make sense here, if I had an ADHD coach, but they don't have ADHD, they kind of know one side of the coin through the education route. They don't really know what the other side of it is to have it to know the internal awareness. And I think that's where you're so brilliant, where you have a complete understanding. So if I'm saying, oh no, today I'm just a little bit all over the place and stuff as well, there would be an objective kind of narrative that we could go through. You'll know it on an emotional level. You'll know it in all the layers. You can see straight into my soul exactly what's going on. And that's inspired me, because it's like, well, having a lived experience and then having the education and training on top, I mean, makes you super. It's like a superpower to as a coach, because you have a double whammy. So I wonder how you feel about that when I kind of reflect that.
I'm honored. Thank you for sharing and reflecting those thoughts on our work together. I really appreciate it. I'm glad that work that we do together has that benefit for you and resonates on that level, because that's very much where I come from. If you imagine a triple-sided coin, those very common triple-sided coins that we see the whole time, it's hopefully the sort of trifecta of the mental health understanding and experience, and all the research that I did around that over many years. I'm not a clinician, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a psychiatrist. I never prescribe or diagnose anything. That's not my field. I am not a therapist. I am a coach, but I have amassed a hopefully decent amount of knowledge about the mental health space through the work that I was doing for the Association for Electronic Music, the global trade body that I work for prior to my role now. In combination with, as you say, the lived experience of having ADHD, I've also got dyslexia and dyscalculia alongside that, and all of the beauty and creativity that can give us alongside the challenges and difficulties that it can also throw up for us. And the third being, of course, the music industry experience, the fact that I've spent over 20 years in the industry, working across all different areas and sectors of it, getting that lived experience, combining the three, hopefully gives the kind of outcomes for clients like yourself. So thank you for sharing that.
It makes me think as well, so for 20 years, music has been my special interest until I found out I got ADHD autism. I was like, this has now become my special interest, but now it's sounds very, very. I feel like the apprentice to the source of sort of like that in a way that I feel I'm on a sort of similar track of, well, I could go down the special interest of neurodiversity and everything as well and stuff as well, but doing it on its own, feels like, oh, I'm disconnecting from my music. How do I bridge these worlds? And that's the niche that you have built. So, I went to Musicians Union and I was like, look, I need to find a coach. I need someone who's got experience and specifically lived experience. I don't want to go for a directory and go, okay, well, about it. Because I've had a lot of, well, I imagine how that feels. And I'm like, I don't like that term. I've had it with so many different areas of life. And the imagine is just, well, okay, we're not connecting on a personal level here. It's like pie in the sky. And so when I went to Musicians Union, I was like, right, ADHD music, your name came up. It was the first name. And the beauty of that is where you've, whether the term is pigeonholed or like, but as a niche of a go-to, when you start to go on that process, and you then obviously presented yourself as a coach, and then you went through, press and other things and stuff. Was there a point where you were getting the ball rolling, but then it just rolled and then you were inundated because it's such a niche? I mean, it can be a small audience, but once you're found out you do that, and the music industry is huge, the musicians, I mean, there's a stat on Help Musicians UK that's 80% of musicians have mental health struggles. And my kind of research into that is that, well, I had depression and anxiety, but there were co-conditions of what was going on underneath. And this is my inquisitive brain of like, well, this must be a lot of musicians who have these things. And again, I'm not going to diagnose anyone of the things, but if you're then going music industry and ADHD, I mean, that becomes a huge audience of people. So did you feel that there was a point where it was kind of the ball was starting to roll, but then you were inundated? And then how did your ADHD and things deal with that?
The Association for Electronic Music, the global trade body for the genre where I worked previously to this role, asked me to lead on developing and deploying a global survey into neurodiversity within the electronic music industry, principally looking at North America, Europe, but also Australasia and Southeast Asia. Relatively small data sets, but still maybe indicative of what you and I both feel and probably have a sense of in the broader music industry, which is top line data. And this appeared in all sorts of media, including Billboard. They also ran a feature on this because it was such new data. And as far as I know, it's the only survey of its kind that's been done still in this way, looking specifically at neurodiversity within just neurodiversity, not mental health, just neurodiversity within the music industry, a specific genre here, of course, electronic music industry. And I forget the exact results because of my dyslexia and ADHD a couple of years back now. But I think I think it was somewhere between about 45 and 55% of respondents identified as having one or more neurodiverse traits. Between 45 and 55% of respondents identified as having one or more neurodiverse traits. So that is dyslexia, dyscalculia, ADHD, Tourette's. That speaks to what you're saying there. I think this sort of this sense that there's a wider population of us folk out there. Why is that? Well, we think in a non-sequential way. We don't think A to Z. We start at Z, we maybe go to G, and we go to B, and then we come back to F. And that's how our brains work. And the beauty of that, of course, in the creative sector, is that it allows us to put these disparate ideas together to form new ones, come up with brilliant concepts, songs, titles, album covers, whatever it might be. And I think this is one of the reasons you see people like yourself and me and so many others within this business, is because where we might struggle in a 9-to-5 job that's very regimented and very structured, and we have to do certain things at certain times in certain ways, and lots of form and all that horrible stuff.
Yeah, I'm getting icky already.
We're both getting icky on that one. where we're allowed to be in this sort of more free form environment where we do of course need a routine and structure. And of course, that's the work that you and I work on together, and that's a huge part of the work that I work on with my clients, providing a structure in which we can do things, but where there is a framework that makes us feel safe and secure and calm. So important. But I think that's one of the reasons perhaps that we see so many neurodiverse people within the music industry, because they're drawn to it because of this non-sequential thinking, this ability to think outside of the box, come up with these new brilliant ideas. So I did this sort of before launching the business. I was already fully committed to doing this. I started my training actually back in 2020. I did some training here in the UK, some in the States. And I spent, John, I can't build websites, but my friends that watch me do this, I lost weekends, ADHD hyperfocus time. I built this website, which it's an all right website, and it does what it needs to do. But God, I mean, I spent hundreds of hours building this website. Committed to being an ADHD coach in the music industry, for the music industry. No one else is doing this. I've got no idea if this is going to work. I finished my last role with a month's worth of money in the bank. It's obviously classic ADHD as well. So I've got basically a month's worth of income to support me. This is either going to sink or swim, right? That's it. Once I've burned through those 30 days worth of cash, I'm in trouble. And to your point, yeah, I mean, the first month just about washed its face, just about washed its face. Month 2, little bit better. Month 3, I was very fortunate to receive quite a lot of media attention for it in various different publications. And as a result of that, I think it grew. I got a lot of attention, Music Ally, DJ Mag, Mix Mag, all of these sorts of folk covered it, which was fantastic. I'm very, very grateful for that coverage. But then people started to see and connect and reach out, and it just went from there, really. And now I'm coaching the most amazing, wonderful people like yourself up and down the business, right the way around the world, from people that are literally just starting out, interns, and people that are just starting out in the business, to sort of like those that are sort of mid-level, right the way through to artists that were very familiar, that headline Coachella and Glastonbury and places like that.
But now, even word of mouth. I mean, I've someone's mentioned to me like, oh, so who's gonna, like, I'm like, this is the guy, because there's no. Sometimes you can get decision paralysis with these things. You go online and look for an ADHD coach. I'm just like, I'm overwhelmed. Even before I type it into Google and I go to a directory, I'm just like, I just can't do it. In which that's where sometimes I love the hyper focus on some things. I do websites and everything as well, but research and things like that, my work is admin. It's the same. It basically comes down to that logistical brain, and I'm like, no, I want to be creative. And to be able to, I had someone else that I went on to a recent sort of retreat with and stuff as well, and she asked, so who's your coach? And so I was like, go and speak to Tristan and stuff as well. And it's now, which I love your stuff, and obviously we've worked together for a while. The fact that it's word of mouth is such a powerful thing now, because they'll come in warm as well. By the time you have those conversations, it's just like, oh, okay, you're not speaking to someone cold. You're not, and I can imagine now trying to navigate that. Maybe there's a waiting list, trying to build a team around it and things as well. Where do you see your coaching going from? Do you feel it's going to upgrade every year, or do you just like to keep a consistency and just work with the clients that you're working with, or do you have other visions for where this could go?
Hopefully I upgrade my knowledge and skills. That's a key part of what I do. I'm obsessed by continuous learning and development, most of all because I absolutely love the subject. I'm fascinated by it, endlessly fascinated by it. I was very honored to become a guest lecturer for the ADHD Foundation on their professional coaching diploma qualification this year, lecturing on what makes a good ADHD coach. So I was very honoured that Dr. Tony Lloyd, CEO of the ADHD Foundation, asked me to be part of that. But the Musicians Union asked me to construct their neurodiversity section on their
It's brilliant
page. I mean, again, huge shout out to John that invited me to do that. So thank you to them, and again, very honoured to be part of that world. And spoken of in those ways, or feels a bit surreal sometimes. The sense of imposter syndrome that we talk about. Sort of, this is real for all of us, and that's a constant work for every one of us, often, whether we're a coach or not. But in terms of the development of the practice, I love what I do. I'm really happy doing what I do, John. That I have an amazing assistant who's changed my world. I've never had an assistant before. I've always been somebody else's assistant or supported other people. I can't have an assistant. I'm not worthy of an assistant.
Good old imposter syndrome coming out. Yeah.
Exactly. All of that stuff. And I made that decision at the beginning of last year because things were starting to get busier and busier. And actually, in most of my other roles, I've been an administrator, which is just ridiculous because I'm more than admin. And that was a great decision. It was very difficult recruiting and doing that process, but I found somebody after somebody else didn't quite work out, somebody else who's brilliant. So shout out to Di, who's my assistant, who just has changed my world and enables me to coach at the level that I do. But just to finish your question off my own tangent, I have no aspirations for sort of growing the company into something where I'm employing lots of other coaches and scaling it globally. I have a number of people that I can see at any one time, and see them well and at the level that I want to see them and be present for them. And I'm really grateful to have a little bit of a waiting list and stuff now, and that's amazing. But beyond that, no, I just really love what I do, and this is a great place to be. So I'm very, very content with where I am.
I imagine that and the reflection of just even you saying that is just like, I know my tendency to be, I've got to go big or go home, but there's just like this just constant upgrading and constantly like, it's not enough. But there's a feeling like where you were to where you are now, this sort of settled, I don't know, settled is the word, but like, it sounds like a content kind of feeling of, do you know what? This is filling up the cup, like everything that within my life, I've synergized everything I need. I've got music, ADHD. I've got clients who, I can only speak for myself, but I'm everything we do. I'm actively trying to put into practice and things as well. And I know I don't, personally want to turn up constantly being that person, just like who, oh no, I just can't be bothered with that. I can't be bothered. Like, I'm all in. And I imagine when you've got other clients like that, it's fulfilling. It's like having guitar pupils who put in the effort. It doesn't always work every week, but that in the background, we're spinning plates, we are creating things, we are doing things. And if you start to see, like even mine or others, careers start to develop, other areas in their life start to develop and things as well, it is a result of the work that you're doing, we're doing, and things as well. So it becomes a partnership where I can imagine it doesn't feel like work at all, because it's just, I know it's an honor sometimes to speak to someone. I've got a few clients that when they come in and you go, I'm feeding off this energy, the whole hour's just gone instantly. And that just felt like the most natural, authentic conversation I've just had today. Didn't feel like work, but actually it's just sustained my business. So I can imagine getting to that level of contentment where you're like, this is all just flowing. It doesn't always work. I know we have weeks, and I know shit hits the fan and all that other stuff as well. And I think that's reality in the awareness of ADHD as well. I think I made a point in like one of my sessions where I was like, this is me on this side of the coin, and I don't feel this is me. And I think we made a kind of realize, you made me realize like, no, all the parts of me, when I'm dysregulated, when I'm feeling high when I'm this and stuff as well. That's just part of it. It's and I think the awareness of the ADHD that you've given me is that, yeah, a lot of me, and I know a lot of us can focus on the struggles and we can focus on the problems. But I also know that if I do focus on the struggles and problems, I'll create more struggles and problems. Not to say that ADHD is a superpower, because I know that's also another narrative, but I sort of feel, okay, well, I feel I'm hardwired as a creative. That's just personally. I feel 80% of my life is very creative. Then I've got to distribute 20% to the rest of my life, like logic and things, which is why getting a coach brings me up from 20% to 30, 40%. A therapist then takes it up a higher. So it's getting that support team, support worker, like you said, getting an assistant to be able to, I feel, bring my weaknesses up to my strengths. I'm outsourcing the weaknesses so I can focus on the strengths. Do you feel the narrative of coaching? Now, coaching, the term, it's been used so many different areas of the industry. In sports, it's a different term than it is in what maybe you do here. How do you see the coaching industry? That might be a vague question. I don't know, but there's a lot there, mate. Sorry.
I'm happy to take a run at it. Firstly, just to say, I very much resonate with what you're saying there in terms of that feeling of connection that you have working with clients that want to put the time and effort in. And I would say at the beginning of my work with people, after a free 30-minute discovery call, people can, well, this is how we met, of course, we have a chat. And then if we connect and, share some problems and challenges around your ADHD, I say some stuff, and if we feel that we can work together, that's the basis of the relationship. And then always say this is hard work. This is not easy. This work, as you know yourself, this is not easy work. But if you're prepared to put the time in, very much like the students that you teach, I'm sure, as you were just saying, it's so gratifying. And yes, on those days, it doesn't feel like work. And often my job doesn't feel like work. And I love what I do for those reasons. So yeah, I really resonate with what you're saying there, John. In terms of how do I see the coaching industry more broadly? It's rapidly evolving. You have organizations like the ADHD Foundation, which is the UK's preeminent, if not leading, charity foundation for people with ADHD. And there's organizations like this around the world of different levels and different sorts. And they've just started this coaching program, of which I'm part, to give people a diploma in being able to coach on this subject, specifically on ADHD. There's other versions of this around the world. There's some in the UK, there's some in the States, and they all offer different levels of experience and quality of training and coaching and things like this. I think for anyone curious to explore this space, it's really worth doing the research and seeing what the different bodies offer, whether they're offering some sort of accreditation at the end of it, if that's important to you. The depth to which they go. Some of these courses are maybe like, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks long. They're pretty brief, and some of those are great to do as a taster. Is this what I want to really commit to? Because it's expensive. I've invested a huge amount of money in the training that I've done, and that might not be for everybody. So it depends on what you want to do. Are you just looking to upskill yourself? Because there's lots of coaching courses that can help us do that, which are really helpful. Or do you want to become a professional coach? And my suggestion to anyone that wants to become a professional coach is to look at the courses that offer a greater level of depth and understanding around the condition. Looking at things like comorbidities, looking at things like how things like PTSD, CPTSD, really quite sensitive, particularly sensitive mental health challenges can interact with the condition, the coexisting conditions, the histories that sit behind people, the differentiation between therapy and coaching, the boundaries that are needed for that, the understanding that some of these sessions will be very heavy, that we are sometimes dealing with incredibly challenging subjects, trauma with both a small t and a large t. Through the work that I've done, I've worked with people who have been physically, mentally, sexually abused. I've worked with people who have such severe ADHD they cannot leave the house and they're unemployed. Maybe they're musicians and they're fortunate because they've got some royalties that are coming in. That great. I've got others who I work with that have, sort of the celebrity lifestyle worlds that we see on TV and that side of things, and everyone in between. But that's to say that this job can be incredibly challenging, and that if you don't have the requisite skills and understanding specifically of yourself, first and foremost, you've got to have a really deep understanding of yourself, how you tick, before you can help other people. That's not to say that you can't do that along the way, but you do it in a way that is safe and supported. Like I'm just getting a new supervisor starting next month, which I'm really looking forward to.
Right,
so
right.
that I've got somebody that I can talk to about,
Supervision, yeah.
supervision, that's ongoing supervision. That's a really important part of this as well, even when you're fully qualified. So the question you asked, it is quite broad, but there's an awful lot there. It's just to really say that understand perhaps if you want to be a coach, where you want to go with it. And if you're not quite sure, maybe do one of the shorter, lighter courses to begin with, just to dip your toe into the water, get a sense of it. Is this for me? And if it is, then do the best quality coaching courses that you possibly can do. And I would, obviously, there's a bit of bias here because I lecture on the course, but I've also done a lot of academic work over the years with the Open University, with the universities I've just mentioned, other different courses. I've trained with ADCA in the States, which is sort of like, I've done the sort of introductory courses with ADCA, which is often regarded as being one of the sort of leading institutions, and one of those courses was very good. But the ADHD Foundation course in the UK, the Professional Coaching Diploma, is excellent because of the depth to which it goes. And if you really want to become a professional coach, that's what we need to be able to show up to help people adequately. And I say adequately, that's at a basic level. Next to that, we've got to do the self-work. Okay, so you touched on this earlier, this idea of therapy. The two are so complementary. Often work with clients who are both in therapy and they're doing some coaching work together. Brilliant. Two quite different disciplines, but in a little Venn diagram, if you like, if your viewer audience could see what I'm doing here, I'm sort of like circling my fingers over each other. They overlap, but there are boundaries as well in between them. So there's some complexities going on there. But unless we really know ourselves, what was it at Delphi, the sort of structure in ancient Greece, it says, as you walked into this place, know thyself. So know thyself, this idea of understanding ourselves first and foremost. How does our ADHD show up? How do our comorbidities, coexisting conditions, if we have them, how do they show up? How do we see those maybe showing up in the coaching practice? What's our degree of self-awareness? We need to have a high degree of self-awareness in order to be able to help people well. So there's a huge amount that goes into coaching. It's not just showing up and going, hi.
Yeah.
Where would you like to begin today?
Well, that's like an AI thing. It feels like AI. That's somewhere. But you're right. That do you feel when you were sort of deciding to enter into this pond, knowing that, did it feel like a special interest? That's what I don't want to kind of say that. Yeah, because I feel the term special interest, I mean, I know it can be seen as an autistic thing, but I think it's, it can be used in neurodivergent thing. But I know the to be able to get to the ability of my acoustic guitar playing as well, I was like, there's something there as a special interest for years and years and years. And it's just funny now that I still play, but this has taken precedent. And I wonder if there is an inquisitive, obviously there's curiosity and finding out about ourselves. But do you feel the ADHD lends itself to that kind of intensity of awareness, education. Like we hyper focus, we go so deep compared to, oh, I'll just do a little half an hour in the evening. No, 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 no. If I'm in this pool, it's going to be on my mind the whole day, next day, the next day. Did you find that it was almost like something starting to take over you, but it's not gradual for like a lot of people, or I don't know, it's neurotypical or whatever it is, but it just felt it took over and accelerated very quickly.
Absolutely. And it's what we call hyperfocus.
Yeah.
The key part of the ADHD condition is this idea of being able to focus very intently on a single thing for an extended period of time. We need to manage this. And that's part of what we look at coaching, because it can be a huge strength. But as you and I both know, it can also, if we completely go into it, and disregard everything else we need to do in life, it can leave us feeling very dysregulated, and then other bits of life start to get a bit frayed at the edges. So yes, it gave me, I had a huge amount of hyper focus for learning about ADHD and understanding about the condition, and I still do to this day.
With coaching now, I imagine it's bespoke to each individual, and I know we've gone through things, and it sometimes can be what's based on what's happening this week, but it can be there's a thread that's going along all the time. So I'm developing my career in multiple different ways, and it's not just like a one-dimensional musician. I'm like, I've got this. We often have several other things going on, like the podcast and like an album and like this and things as well. And I like my brain to do that and scatter, but obviously there can be overwhelmed with these things. When you start with a client, is it a kind of a rolling on thing, or do you feel there's an outcome in any sort of area? Is it more outcome of well-being? So right, if I can get them to the point where they are structured in their life and things, it's obviously going to enhance their business, their relationships and everything as well. Yeah, maybe the term outcome, does that come into coaching at all, or do you feel it's very, let's just go with the flow of it?
It might come from the client. So you might tell me that you have a specific outcome or set of outcomes that you like to work towards. These are sometimes called goals.
Yeah.
Then that's what we'll work towards, 100%. I'm here to serve you. I'm here to serve the client. Within that, certainly what I'm hoping to help yourself and any client that I work with create is a foundation, is a structure, is a daily routine that's going to enable you to get the stuff done that you want to do. Because of course, with ADHD, mentioned hyperfocus there, bringing our attention in a sustained way to things and finishing them, actually getting them complete, can be a huge challenge. Doing the day-to-day life admin, whatever it might be, can be a massive challenge.
Life min. I love that term. That's a buzzword that I'm going to take away. Right. Sorry, Tristan, didn't mean to cut you up there, though. You've said two things today that just like squirrel, and I'm like, oh no. Keep going.
There's a lot of life min, isn't there, in our world, that is actually very challenging for us to do. We sort of remember that the ADHD brain is showing up to work, and that's to sort of do the things we want it to do in one of two states. We have interest equals dopamine is the neurotransmitter, also known as a neuromodulator, that enables us to focus, and this is just at a basic level. Okay, so the first part is, if we have interest for something, especially if there's novelty, our brain produces this neurotransmitter, neuromodulator, dopamine, which our ADHD brains are in chronic short supply of. The other one, where our brains are showing up to kick into action for us, is this more fight or flight space. So it's urgency with severe consequences. So suddenly, if we have urgency with severe consequences, we need to pay a bill, tax return at the end of the day. If we don't get that invoice in now to get that money that we've been owed this money for weeks now, for months maybe, but if we don't get this, we can't pay our mortgage, but whatever else it might be. Urgency with severe consequences can trigger us into action. Our brains are producing another neurotransmitter, neuromodulator called norepinephrine, or noradrenaline. Norepinephrine if you're in the States, noradrenaline if you're over here. So if people listen to this and they read two different versions, this is one for the medics and the scientists. The Americans came up with one name, we came up with another. It's one and the same thing. Noradrenaline, norepinephrine. So this space is often where us folk with ADHD live. It's where we exist before we get diagnosed, and even if after we've got diagnosed, certainly. But before we've had any sort of, intervention in terms of coaching and maybe sort of a pharmacological intervention, if you choose to work with a registered doctor or healthcare professional that is prescribing ADHD medication. I take dexamphetamine myself and stimulant medication to help resolve these lower levels of these brain chemicals, these neurotransmitters. The stimulant medication is simply elevating, raising up these neurotransmitters, the dopamine and the norepinephrine, to levels that we'd like to have had in the first place. That's all they're essentially doing. So we've got brain showing up to work, interest equals dopamine, action, urgency with severe consequences, norepinephrine, noradrenaline, we can get stuff done. The second space, though, this more adrenalized space, this is exhausting for the ADHD brain and body, right? If we're constantly in this space where we are adrenalized the whole time, because the only way we can get stuff done is to leave it to the last minute. This is why deadlines and things like that are often useful for us to get things finished. But boy, can it be stressful for us, and it's stressful for everyone around us, because we're going, oh, I can't come out, hold this, stop that. And other people are going, what? But I've got my life to live, and you're meant to be, So what we're looking to do with coaching, of course, is to, I say, of course, like it's a given, but what we're looking to do with coaching is to create a world for yourself, for me, for coaches, where we can leverage these two brain states, because as you and I both know, we can leverage them with some intentionality and some structures and routine that enable us to get more of the stuff done that we need to do and finished. That's the important bit. Whilst creating a space to do the things we want to do, that we love doing, that, like, as you were saying earlier, creativity, we want you to be in your zone of genius as much as possible, your zone of genius. And please correct me if you feel this is wrong.
No, that's right.
My experience and our work together, your zone of genius is as a singer-songwriter, writer-producer. You are an artist, and we want you to be in that space as much as possible, because that's where you thrive. That's where you're really alive.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say?
That without a doubt. And now, I mean, it has moved to the special interest of these things, because I think that's actually music can be curiosity. Once you've got your techniques and your tools and everything as well, all you're doing is, it's like an artist carving away stones all the time to make creations and things. And that happened for years and years, until neurodiversity's come onto my plate of, like, there's a curiosity, there feels like a chiseling away of myself now and learning about that sort of stuff. But you're right, but that's creative in itself. It's just like, what's going on? How is this working? And certain things, like you talk about fight or flight, where feels like the lion's at the door, and it's just like, no, there's just a noise that just went off upstairs and stuff as well. But that kind of alarm feeling, it is exhausting. And then obviously executive function by the end of the day is just like, I've been stripping wallpaper this week and stuff as well, which is a really mundane task, but cutting it in between to kind of try and do something kind of fun or whatever it is. But by the end of the day, because I'm just done. And that the realization, there's a tendency to stay up to 1 a.m. all the time to be able to get work done. Got to get work, got to move the needle. It's just like, no, it's not. And this is our work. The realization is, it's not necessarily quantity either. It's quality of our hours. And sometimes we've got magic time. I know I've got magic time in the late morning, but I can get so much done in that 2 hours if I've done my morning routine, got the dopamine, which I'm not on medication yet, but I'm looking at it. But I was like, you can't just rely on medication. I need the physical and mental and all the other things, which we've worked on. And so once I've got that dopamine pool I've built up, and I go into those 2 hours, man, I can achieve that more in that 2 hours than I can 8 hours, which will exhaust me as well. And I just wanted, from one, I don't know if I, I don't know if I reflected exactly what you've just said to me. I think I've gone off and pinged different areas. But when you take on ADHD musicians and things as well, is there kind of do you? Oh, how am I trying to say this? We have different attributes, sometimes different strengths in different areas. Obviously, you could see like, okay, well, you're particularly good in this area, but you're struggling in this area. You know, there could be different points or however it is. Do you feel sometimes that, you know, I know I have a slow processing, slow filtering system. So once I get a new idea or something that we've worked on and things as well, it will take me a number of weeks or maybe a week to filter through my system, to filter through all of the noisy shit that's going on or whatever it is as well, to be able to go, oh, that was a good idea, but it's taken me a week, right? I suppose what my question is that when you're working with a client, you know, and especially with someone with ADHD, how realistically some of these things can start to kick in. Because it's not like going to coach and like, right, I'm going to start doing that tomorrow. It doesn't necessarily work like that. Do you find there's a timeline? I mean, you can't, I mean, maybe an average or general for when you start working with a client to think maybe needles are starting to move.
We work with an initial set of 8 sessions because that's normally the very minimum to grow awareness, have sufficient understanding of the condition, and then put in place some tools and structures that can help a person form an effective daily routine. And those 8 sessions are either weekly or fortnightly. So they're going over a few weeks or a few months. The average time I work with a client, probably about half a year at the moment. And that's the average. But then I've been working with some clients for several years. So it really depends on the client's needs, their availability, their budget, you know, time constraints, touring, or a whole range of different things that come into the mix. This is a lifelong piece of work, you know, that I do this job selfishly because it enables me to keep on learning about my ADHD.
It's a feedback loop, isn't it, as well?
It's a beautiful feedback loop, and I learn from you, John. You know, I learn from my clients. This is the wonderful thing, that there's all of these little insights that you're gaining, and then hopefully inculcating into your own coaching practice and helping other people even more with that. You know, it's a wonderful sort of virtuous feedback loop, if you like. But that certainly my own awareness of how to manage my ADHD comes a lot from the coaching work that I do. And your point, you know, just slightly before that, which I thought was really useful, if people are listening to this, there's this idea of building up a reserve of dopamine, if you like, a reserve of these neurochemicals first thing in the day. You know, you and I talk a lot about not using the phone for the first hour of the day, not being on screens for the first hour of the day, being very mindful what we're giving our attention to. We have a certain amount of juice in the tank each day, if you like, you know, to get stuff done. And we need to be very mindful about where we choose to apply our attention. And I use the word choose there, of course, because our attention is constantly being grabbed by a million different things: sight, sound, taste, smell, people, ideas, you know, whatever it could be, internal, external. And that's a big part of the work that we're doing together, of course, is helping to hopefully give you more agency and autonomy over where you choose to put your attention and over what you choose to finish to get you to where you want to be.
Reminds me of like, we almost need a visual indicator. We've got this dopamine tank, but if we do this task, we've got 100 liters where it is. That's going to cost you 1 liter. You know, that's going to cost you that amount of fuel to do this. Or like your phone will cost you 10% of that whole tank you've got. Whereas if you go and do this, and it's like object permanence or things as well. We can't see it. If we can't see it, then we just use it up in some ways. And that awareness, that's what you're talking about there, is vital. And obviously we can't control some things, you know, when we're in a car journey and then the traffic kicks in, or like kids or whatever it is and stuff, that can use our executive function, use it up very quickly. But it's just like, well, I wouldn't be able to get through any of that if I didn't have the dopamine reserve anyway. So so final thought, because I know we kind of with anyone who is exploring, they maybe even actually, because I remember when I started coaching, I think I was undiagnosed, and throughout our process, I then got diagnosed. And I think that beauty of that is because obviously there's waiting lists, it takes a long time and things as well. By the time we've got our diagnosis, we're like, well, I feel like I've gone through a degree because I've gone through years of education by the time I've got that sort of thing. I suppose, I don't know, advice or for anyone who is, because I can speak from it, obviously from a peer, you could probably, you'll do it as well. But from a coaching point of view, who's starting to enter into this pond where they're just like, they've been on their own for years and years, they've just found out, and now they're like, right, well, I need to somehow build up these structures and support around me to be able to bring out the best self. I don't know. Do you have any advice for anyone for that as a final thought?
Start with Attitude magazine, and maybe you can pop this into the show notes. I thought this is really familiar with Attitude magazine. It's the world's leading periodical publication on ADHD. It's a free resource. You can sign up and be a member if you wish, but loads of peer-reviewed scientific information in there in a very easy, digestible form, written in everyday language. It's a fantastic place. Attitude magazine. Really, really recommend checking that out if anyone's listening to this. ADHD 2.0 by Ned Halliwell. Fantastic book. You're shaking your head, nodding your head, going, yeah, we're in agreement on that one. Again, very accessible. Lots of light bulb moments within that. You know, if you're just sort of thinking, maybe, do I have ADHD or not? Fantastic book to read, ADHD 2.0. Again, maybe you can pop that into the show notes. So that's available for folk. In the UK, I would recommend the ADHD Foundation, speaking to them because they've got a huge amount of resources. ADHD UK is another organisation worth checking out. There are a number of different organisations globally. For anyone listening to this, please have a look at your local areas. Lots of free resources out there. In terms of coaching, there are an increasing number of ADHD coaches now, which is fantastic to see. Check out their credentials, have a look at them, see what they're doing. If you feel like you might have ADHD, about a third of my clients are pre-diagnosis, as you know, you were when we started working together. Perfect example, thank you. And often there'll be that arc of we start working together. They're like, yeah, I really think this is a thing. And they then choose to go and get a clinical diagnosis with a specialized clinician, a doctor that specializes in ADHD. And I'll just highlight that again, a doctor who specializes, a psychiatrist who specializes in ADHD, and preferably one that can also prescribe. So if you wish to then get a diagnosis to understand whether you have ADHD or there's any coexisting conditions as well or not, or whatever it might be, to see that person, and then if you chose to try medication that they can also prescribe for you, that's a huge win. So just checking out those details is also really useful. And then, yeah, just obviously advocate coaching, you know, working with someone like myself or many other coaches that are out there. Having a chat to some people that really understand the condition, seeing if it resonates with you, and if it does, maybe trying a piece of work and seeing if that's helpful for managing your day-to-day.
Brilliant. I think that is a perfect way to leave it there. So thank you so much, Tristan, mate. It's been fantastic. And
Pleasure.
I really am grateful for all the work that we've done, but also grateful for you coming on and just open up the can of worms of this and stuff as well, and knowing all the insides and things as well, and knowing where you've been and you know where it's going, and seeing the momentum. You can start to see it, like it is starting to pick up with, especially in the music industry. I know you've been working with things as well, but I'm starting to see it maybe in the weeds of some other musicians and stuff who are like, they come out and they're going, oh, I've just had this and stuff as well, and they're actively trying to just seek for someone just to talk to, not necessarily professionals, but like someone in the weeds, just peer to peer, and those conversations where you can feel heard and seen without feeling like you get invalidated or you get shut down, I think is valuable as well and stuff as well. So, but yeah, it's incredibly powerful, all the work that you've done and what you're doing. So I really admire it.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the feedback, and it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, very interesting. See you soon.
Thanks very much, John. See you soon.
Cheers, mate. Take care.
Cheers. Bye.
Hey, thank you so much for tuning in. If you want to hear more episodes, head to your favorite podcast app or platform and search for The Neurodivergent Musician. There are lots of solo and guest episodes to dive in with insights, improvised babble, and recommendations. I also encourage you to go and check out my new album, Neurodivergent, which is how I process my whole experience from unaware to aware, from undiagnosed to diagnosed, and more through music. And finally, if you are a neurodivergent musician and looking for a community where you can unmask and be you, please do come and join in. We deliver free workshops with Q&As and more. All links are in the podcast description, or you can find out more info at johnhartmusic.com or theneuroDivergentMusician.co.uk. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode. Cheers. Take care.